Musk ox went extinct here in Alaska in the late 1800s. A musk ox is this crazy creature that looks like a lot of things. They get confused with yaks out of Nepal, and they get confused with different types of cows, and they kind of have a bison-esque look. And everyone's correct with that analogy because they're in the Bovidae family, so we're related to those creatures. But they have outlived a saber-toothed tiger and a woolly mammoth. These guys are an Ice Age creature, and they've evolved along with that. And because of that, while they might look more like a cow, their subfamily is that of the goats and the sheep. So you could say that they're a giant Arctic goat if you wanted to generalize. And when you get down to their size, I think that's the thing we all kind of have a misnomer about, because National Geographic set us up for failure. They're always that musk oxen looming on the hill with the tundra, the wind blowing majestically through their hair, and then they show up to the musk ox farm. And a musk ox is 4 to 5 feet tall, weighs somewhere between 500 to 800 pounds, and really likes naps. And so sure, their shaggy hair is probably what you know about them, and that part they got right, but the rest of it, they're pretty lazy, wonderful Arctic goats.
You know, I've been doing this since 2010. I've been around the property since 1995. These guys are amazing. They are such an incredible species. People ask all the time, are they intelligent? I don't know. Is intelligence tied to personality? If that's true, these guys have it in spades. These are the most amazingly curious, mischievous, bratty, playful, fun, goofy animals you could ever spend time around. They are truly unique, absolutely amazing. They used to hang out with saber-toothed tigers and mastodon on the tundra. They made it. The other guys didn't. They're an incredible species. They're absolutely amazing.
We help people care about muskox and farming through quite a few different ways. And a part of them is just helping people find their connection with a creature that they might not ever have met. And that's a big piece for us, is just helping meet people where they're at and find out that they actually, Olive acts just like their dog at home. And so now they've made this connection to this Arctic creature and they might never meet. And hopefully that will transfer to them wanting to learn more when they go home. And then we have this other vein of who we are, and that's farming. And so yes, we do farm musk oxen for hair, and we do it in a very unique and careful way. We're all about gentle husbandry. And so our goal is to help people understand that farming can be done different, that you can care about the creature more than your bottom line, that who they are is way more important than what they produce at the end of the day, but that they're still producing something and that has a value as well. And so hopefully when people leave here or they learn about us, that they're learning that Olive is an individual musk oxen, and sure, she gives us kivute every year, and we love that she's doing that, and she gives us more each year because she's comfortable and lives a stress-free life and is happy out here.
The Musk Ox Farm came to be what it is today with an idea that our founder, John Teal, had about the possibility of domesticating a musk oxen. He started in 1954. He was an anthropologist, profoundly interested in particularly the Arctic and the people in the Arctic. And what he envisioned was having this geographically appropriate form of agriculture available to people in the far north. So in places where musk oxen lived, you don't need a special barn, you don't need to have any special feed. They should be able to exist in that environment. Of course, the big question is, can they be domesticated? And that's a very big question. Horses have been domesticated for 10,000 years, and people spent all of that time trying to domesticate a zebra because it sure looks a lot like a horse. Zebras will never be domesticated. So to consider that you're going to go get this large mammal and domesticate it was rather bold, rather ostentatious. But he did it, and he's a big thinker. He was given permission to go up into the Barren Grounds in Canada and capture some musk ox calves to bring back to his farm in Vermont. And so the whole purpose of that was to ask the big questions: will they survive in captivity? Can he harvest kivute? What would it be like for a musk oxen to be held in captivity? And he spent the next 10 years working on that question, and he was very satisfied with the answer, enough to embolden him to start the project, the roots of this project today, but also a farm in Norway and a farm in Canada. And so in 1964, he went into Nunavak Island and he captured musk oxen there and took them out to the farm in Fairbanks, where it operated for a number of years until he famously got into a tiff with the upper echelons of academia at that time. And as the lore goes, he stomped off under the cloak of darkness and took the herd out to Unalakleet. They also had a really difficult time feeding the animals, and they were on a pretty large chunk of land. However, it was not enough. Musk oxen, they don't migrate, but they do range, and they will range over a large area to get the nutrition they need in order to survive. And so by the time the project was wrapping up, and there they were mailing bales of hay to themselves. And that was obviously not a very sustainable method of agriculture. So we incorporated as a nonprofit in 1984. We ended up moving onto this property in 1986. So we've been here since then, and that is fairly easy to say. That kind of gets us to what the Musk Ox farm is today. We've been through a lot on this property. We've had some wonderful successes. We've had some really challenging failures, and it's been really rewarding to watch this farm over the last decade really kind of have some big changes in how it's worked, and seeing it thriving is pretty exciting.
Musk ox have this amazing story that takes us all the way back to kind of Ice Age times, right? They've outlived the saber-toothed tiger and the woolly mammoth. They've managed to survive an ice age, and then people have to get involved in all of this. And so musk oxen here in Alaska have had a very vast history. They did go extinct here in the late 1800s. Due to a couple factors, from increased pressure on the herd to possible downturns in their population at the time. And so we went a lot of years without having musk oxen here in Alaska. And by the 1930s, it was decided by the US government that musk oxen were going to be brought back to Alaska. And so they actually went to Greenland, of all places, to collect a herd. They barged them over to the United States, trained them across the United States. They then put them on another ship up to Alaska. They then get off of a ship onto another train, spend a couple years in Fairbanks before they get put back on another train to the coast, put on an island on the west coast of Alaska, and somehow these hardy little animals have managed to survive all of this. So they're this amazing creature that really is just so hardy and wants to survive and wants to be part of the story here, that then we turn around and don't even think about them. Most people who visit the farm have no idea that musk oxen live here. There are over 4,000 wild musk oxen hanging out in Alaska, but because they're not on the road system, and because they're not a huge part of our curriculum here in the US, because Alaska is the only place here in the United States you can find them, they're kind of this forgotten hero that hopefully, with the help of places like the Musk Ox Farm and other conservation efforts, that people will learn this amazing story of what they've survived. And they definitely have another fight ahead of them with the climate changing in the Arctic to see whether or not they can evolve and deal with what's happening up there as we go forward.
John Teal's legacy survives today through his original vision. It is still the number one goal of this project, to domesticate musk oxen. It's a very, very long road. And so in the process, we have opportunities to do a lot. We are able to, most importantly after that, is educate. And, for so many people in the world, there is just absolutely no awareness of musk ox. They just don't show up on the radar of very many people. So, you know, as the climate does change, polar bears get center stage, but musk oxen are another large mammal that really are going to become a marker species in what happens in the world today. And I think that, you know, for everyone to be aware of, you know, what's happening in the Arctic, it's happening rapidly. And so through education and musk ox and making people aware of what their plight is really, really important. So I think that John Teal's legacy really is wrapped up in the education that continues and the work that we put into domestication.
We want to educate the public about musk ox and musk ox farming. A big piece of it comes back to our mission. It essentially tells me, as our education director, that our staff should be out educating in general, and that leaves it pretty open for us. But our mission is to really look at how our animals are as individuals and connect them to those stories, as well as the importance of kivute and this idea that this very valuable fiber can be hand combed off of these animals in a very gentle, stress-free manner to kind of go along with who they are as individuals and how that works in a farming sense.
Well, there's several ways you can collect wool. Historically, it was combed from hides from musk oxen that were hunted. There's people who will collect musk oxen off the tundra. They do shed naturally every year. And for someone living in a community where musk oxen are present, it could be a pretty lucrative little afternoon to go out and pick kivute up off the tundra. Here on the farm, the whole idea is we comb them. They don't get shaved or sheared. The guard hair is incredibly important for keeping off the sun, bugs, water, and protecting the body and protecting the kivute. So in the spring, when it starts to naturally shed, we'll just keep, you know, poking at them and looking at it, and as it finally releases, we're able to get in there with a steel-toothed hair pick and just kind of get underneath it and then lift it out past the guard hair. That gives us a really clean fiber that we're able to use, and from there it gets processed into yarn. It could take upwards of a year to process our fiber through a mini mill. And so it's a long process. It needs to get first opened up, which it's, you know, after being packed in a bag, it needs to get scoured, which is less important for kivute than sheep's wool, which is full of lanolin and grease. But it still needs to be cleaned. There's a lot of dust. There could be, you know, plant matter. There could be a poop in there somewhere. So it needs to get scoured, gets carded. All the fibers need to get going the same direction. Goes into a pin drifting machine that also gets it, then it's just right before ready for spinning to make it really uniform, and then it gets spun, and then it gets skeined or dyed, and then it comes back. It's a pretty complicated process, and it's very delicate. Kivute is a smooth fiber. It will not felt, and it will not shrink. You can boil it in water and it will not shrink. And sheep's wool has little scales on it and barbs, and so that's what, as those things catch on each other, that's what makes wool felt or makes it shrink in hot water. Kivute doesn't do that. It also makes it really a slippery fiber when you're spinning it. It's further complicated by being a relatively short fiber for what it is. And it's one of the finest fibers. Their kivute's about 12 microns in diameter. Merino or cashmere is like 19 microns. Sheep's wool goes up to probably 60. It's, you know, it's very, very fine, smooth, slippery stuff. So it definitely takes a spinner who's not just pushing a button and saying go. It's a very, you know, a lot of art goes into making it into a fine yarn.
Because musk oxen have been brought back to Alaska since the late 1800s, we've had this amazing privilege to get to watch in our lifetimes musk oxen make their return. And education, I feel like, is going to be a huge part of how we're able to keep them here for generations. They're this animal we never think about, and that hopefully can change if more people care. And the more people that care and become invested in their future, hopefully the more information we learn, the more science gets done about them, and the more we can see these guys go generations from now, survive whatever comes next in our world.
We have an incredible ability to educate, and I think we have an incredible ability to allow people to become familiar with. And, you know, the world is changing, and it's very unlikely that we're going to make any brilliant move that's going to, set the clock back 60 years and be able to do it. So I think that anything that can happen to raise awareness and to draw people's attention, especially to the far north, and is only going to be a positive thing. So I think that it's more of an opportunity cost lost if we were to no longer exist than if suddenly we just went away. What would that mean? I think probably one of the most important things about what we do here is not so much about what we do here, it's how we do it. And what we find is that we don't have traumatic injuries within the herd. We don't have workers' comp claims. We don't have a lot of destruction of property. We don't have vet bills that come from animals that are stressed out and are having problems with parasite loading. So it makes a lot of sense. It makes us feel good about what we do, and it's an incredible place to be a musk ox. The oldest musk oxen that we've ever heard about is a 23-year-old cow. We just said goodbye to a 28-year-old cow this last spring. Never heard of a male getting out of their teens, and we just said goodbye to a 25-year-old male. I mean, this is a really, really good place to be a musk ox, and I think that it's because of, so importantly, about how we do things.